Duke Nukem 3D, a legendary game that left its mark on popular culture with its tongue-in-cheek macho attitude and relentless destruction fest. A title that never interested me that much. I prefer my first-person shooting experience to be more sophisticated and nuanced, a la Monolith's post-90s catalog. Then in 2015, Good Old Games announced that Duke Nukem series would be leaving their store due to rights holder change, so might as well see what the fuss is all about. But before we get to the main course, we have two appetizers before that. I'm Matti Mali, aka Heater-SIG Actor, and let's begin our look on Duke with its first game from 1991. Long before all the fame, the professional ass-kicker started his ass-kicker in a humble 16-color 2D platformer produced by Scott Miller, also known for his work in Rise of the Triad, Max Payne and Prey 2006. The title card did indeed say Duke Nukem because the makers thought Nukem would be a copyright violation against the Captain Planet and the Planeteers villain of the same name, but turned out there was nothing to worry about. The game, like its two sequels, were distributed in server format, where you get 1/3 or 1/4 of the game free, and if you want to see the rest, you have to cough up some cash. So basically, it's the spiritual predecessor for episodic format. Let's see how well the first episode Shrapnel City manages to sell the product. It's the past futuristic year of 1997 when a maddened scientist, Dr. Proton, decides to take over the world with his army of robots. So CIA sends the resident badass Duke Nukem to deal with this problem. Sound effects in general are somewhat grating, but I understand it's the limitations of the old technology, so I got used to it. There's not much to talk about gameplay-wise. In each episode you go through 10 levels, shoot robots with a laser gun, and that's the only gun you'll ever going to get, and collect old computer stuff that give you points that are the spiritual predecessor for achievements. Oh, and hunt for keycards, don't forget that serious staple. All this culminates to a battle against Dr. Proton, who just flies back and forward. The other episodes, Mission, Moonbase and Trap in the Future, have new backgrounds, but other than that there are zero changes to the formula. In short, Duke Nukem is an average, less interesting version of Commander Keen in the Invasion of Vorticons. Next. 2 years later, Duke Nukem II, or by its full title no one uses, Duke Nukem II Escape from Alien Abductors, was released. This time Scott Miller focused on the story, as the producing duties were done by George Broussard, who has been involved with pretty much the same projects and also have been the project leader for Shadow Warrior games. There are two other writing credits, the original trilogy's programmer Todd Jason Riplockle and Tom Hall of Commander Keen and Anachronox fame, which I find curious because this is not the kind of story that needs more than one writer. After Duke confirms to the audience that he is indeed back, we got the year after the previous game's events when aliens known as Rigeladins kidnap him and plan to use his brain for their strategy computer in order to conquer Earth. Naturally he objects and escapes with ease to kick ass and take names, and he's all out of names. The first sign of improvements are the upgraded graphics and a nice rock metal inspired soundtrack. Though the game has the same problem as many 2D platformers of the era. In order to show the more detailed graphics, the camera is too close, which turns moving into paranoid tippy-toeing. So the formula is pretty much the same as with the first game, but there is more variation now. While Mr. Nukem has only the laser gun, there are temporary power-ups available for it, like rapid-fire rockets and wall-piercing plasma, and there are more stage gimmicks like earthquakes. But the first episode promises too much, as the following three start to recycle environments and music, culminating in the 8th level to the same alien flying a hovercraft fight in the end of each, making the experience rather tedious. The second episode does introduce a new game mechanic and like 2 new enemies, but it's not enough. Let's see if Dukenator fares better with his most universally beloved title, Duke Nukem 3D. Produced and directed by Greg Malone II, who also did game design for Catacomb series and Ultima 6, with original concept by franchise's regular scenario designer Alan Blum III, this game was quite groundbreaking in 1996. Not only was it the next evolutionary step for first-person shooters, but it also went full on testosterone with intensified gore bacchanals and naughtiness that gave a glimpse on what the forbidden section of your parents' VHS collection holds. You can imagine this caused some controversy. Sure, there is parental lock that hides away the more adult content, but playing Duke Nukem 3D that way is like having a pizza without cheese, so even though I'm not the biggest fan of its lowbrow aesthetic, I shall play it the way it was meant to be played. The story takes place immediately after the previous game, and all that you get is this one screen telling that another alien race cycloids are attacking the Earth, so let's rock and get into the first episode, LA Meltdown.
Those alien bastards are gonna pay for shooting up my ride.
This is indeed the first time Duke is voiced by John St. John in his career-making debut role, and he comments the events of the game with "damn, I'm good at the dude" by spotting pop culture references that are the spiritual predecessor to memes. Not all of his one-liners are fresh anymore, but they're scarce enough and delivered with eye-winking bravado to keep it bearable. That's pretty much the shallow, deaf Duke Reach's personality voice, but when has anyone ever given a damn about the narrative of Duke Nukem series? It's a power fantasy about a guy who goes where he pleases and pleases where he goes, so this game wouldn't be a million seller if it didn't have a tight gameplay accompanying its beefy wisecracking lead. Well, the first 5-level episode set in Los Angeles does a good job in introducing all the features like jetpack that adds a whole another layer to exploring. Shooting varies itself with more exotic weapons like Shrinking Ray and Freeze Thrower, and the enemy design is memorable. It's always a good sign if even the more common enemies manage to make you jumpy like these floating psychic nasties. The level design is pretty neat as well. While having branching paths, they're not monstrously wide, yet still hold a decent amount of secrets. The levels also have surprising amount of interactivity for a game of its day, like looking at cameras, playing pool, supporting local businesses, and... is this a scripted event? Why yes indeed, Nukem gets captured at the end of the second mission, but manages to avoid electrocution by just walking away from the chair. But good luck trying to survive the first monsters with only your mighty foot as a weapon. The game is on the tougher side, and some of its tricks are cheap, like skimping on ammunition for the more powerful weapons, which makes this one of the only first-person shooters where pistol is useful even in later stages, and hiding some more powerful enemies in multiple amounts to places where you couldn't possibly see beforehand. But at least quick saving is possible. Unfortunately, its out-of-date control scheme doesn't make things smoother either. Usually in first-person games like this you can use mouse to look around and aid with aiming, but Duke Nukem 3D was made before that kind of luxury was common practice. Well, the mouse does function, but bizarrely you can use it while moving, which doesn't help as turning is still clumsy during combat. Both the enemies and the player hit automatically their target if the cursor points remotely to the same direction, so it's really a case of standing in place and hoping I manage to shoot my opponents before they shoot me. But admittedly, strafing can help against more destructive projectiles. However, controls are a lesser gripe when compared to the game's pacing problems that start from the second episode, Lunar Apocalypse, which has 9 missions instead of 5. It is the first appearance of the exotic weapons I mentioned earlier and a whole slew of tough enemy types, but the levels can take too long and it's even stingier with ammunition, which is oh so amusing in parts like here where I'm expected to win a fight against 2 battle lords. Twice in a row. All in all, it has good visual and audio presentation and well done levels, but due to its clumsier aspects in controls and pacing, I find Duke Nukem 3D to be overrated. But let's get into the fourth piece in our 4-course meal with a game that is either a sequel or spin-off depending on the source, Duke Nukem Manhattan Project. While the development for the next big Duke experience, Duke Nukem Forever, was taking longer than anticipated, several smaller products were made in the meantime to appease public's hunger, with Manhattan Project's release in 2002. In this return to the roots, the producer was Robert Travis, whose only project-leading games have been Redneck Rampage, Sucking Bridge on Route 66, and RC Daredevil, though several serious veterans did work as creative consultants. As you may have seen from the shown material, the game is low budget. But just because it doesn't have a top-notch technology doesn't mean it wouldn't have something of value. So last time the hailer of the King Baby saved West Coast, so it's time to save East Coast. As the sewer creatures of New York are turning into human-hunting monsters. This has been caused by a deranged scientist Morphix because of insert shoulder shrug here. So Duke starts his 2.5D platformer adventure on 8 levels, each separated into 3 parts, to save damsels in distress, kick ass, and spew one-liners that come in even greater frequency. Despite their plentiful amount, they can still amuse in their self-awareness. Though not all of them are winners.
You're my hero.
Hey, I know this classy place where you put quarters into the bed and...
Why did he suddenly turn into a desperate, horny teenager? Wait, why did Morphix kidnap those women again? I'm not sure if it was ever explained. The environment changed from roof to street levels, a nightclub, subway system, and a mutagen factory among others, that all look dull-colored and can get confusing to navigate, especially in the subway and sewer levels, but hold plenty of secrets to prevent tediousness. And it's fairly fun to go through these and blast enemies with the arsenal of 7 weapons that share their ammunition with each other, so resource management is advised. Speaking of resource management, the most important collectibles are these nuclear things that if you find all 10 hidden in each stage, they raise your stats, so better be thorough in exploring. You're going to have easier time against the bosses. Yeah, each mission has one, and most of them are just stronger versions of regular moves, though the few unique cases did a good job in getting the adrenaline running. Duke Nukem Manhattan Project may seem ugly and feel cumbersome, but it has a tight arcade-style high-pumping gameplay, and is tonally the most balanced in capturing the charming juvenility of 80s and 90s action flicks, and it has just the right amount of content it needs and nothing more, so yeah, out of all of these 4 games, I enjoyed this one the most. And that's Duke Nukem series the way I experience it. Both because of Last Chance getting historically educated, but they are overall alright. They all suffer from being products of their time and having limited technology throwing curveballs, but if there's one thing you can always bet on Duke games, it's their bold action that makes for intense gaming journeys even in their most mediocre stage. So if you like your heroes manly, prefer the simpler times and have the philosophy of more is better, then I guess Duke Nukem 3D will give you the most value. Though I recommend you to give Manhattan Project a chance. By the time of the recording of this video, these games still haven't returned to good old games. But while doing research for this episode, I found a smaller digital video game store, Zoom platform, that has all 4 games for really cheap prices. So yeah, there are. I'm as surprised as you are. Alright, there's also Duke Nukem Forever, the latest installment of the series from 2011, but I haven't played it. Next time we have... longer experience, so this may take a while. Until then, thanks for your time.